Welcome back! It's Wild Hunt Wednesday, which means it's time to do monsters. Monsters, so scary. True. Monsters got a little bit more complicated over time, and they're now a pretty fun deck to play. With this one, we're going to start with the leader ability, because it's what impacts the rest of these cards. So the leader ability gives you 2 charges, which means you get it 2 times whenever you want. And it's an order. Move an enemy unit to the other row. So if they're on melee, we're going to move them to ranged. If they're on the ranged, we're going to move them to melee. And then we're going to put Frost on that row for 2 turns. So whichever row they're moved to, not from. And the reason for that is because Frost is going to, at the start of the owner's turn, damage the highest power unit in this row by 2. So you move it to that row, and then you're going to end your turn. The opponent's going to start their turn, and that unit is going to take 2 damage. And it's really helpful for damaging the highest power unit for something called dominance. And you might have seen that in some of our former videos against other people. We're going to teach you how it works here. The next thing you need to know about this leader ability is whenever you play a Wild Hunt unit, boost it by 1 if there's Frost in the opposite row. So if you're playing on your ranged and there's Frost in your opponent's ranged, you're going to boost that unit by 1. If you play it to melee and the opponent has a unit in their melee with Frost, there doesn't have to be a unit there. Just if there's Frost on that row, you're going to boost your Wild Hunt unit by 1. So we want to get Frost out, and we want to play our units after there's Frost in the opponent's rows, which makes this a bit of a control deck. Control meaning the opponent does something and you react by damaging, hurting, locking, you've seen used with Derege Vol, killing them off with cards like Geralt where you're removing that big unit. So that's really what you're trying to do with this monsters deck, is say, no, I'm gonna take whatever you just did and turn it in my favor. Okay, so walking through the cards. Geralt, you've seen. Old Spear Tip, for lore reasons, is exactly at 9 points, so Geralt can kill him. But also note that he has Veil, and you are able to just play him out for 9 points. He can't get poisoned. There's nothing that he does, so locks don't matter anyway. But he's just playing out for a lot of points, and that's going to matter. Not for surrender, you've seen that before, but for dominance. And you see this here, dominance is trigger this ability if you control the highest unit on the battlefield. And it can be tied, so if you have a 5 and your opponent has a 5, you still have dominance. But then, like for him, you see this, he has a cooldown of 1, so every turn you're able to damage an enemy unit by at least 1 point, and if you have the biggest unit on the board, it's gonna be by 2 points. He is also, if you notice here, Wild Hunt. So Wild Hunt is getting that boost from the Frost in the opposing row. Ada Striga, dominance does by 4 damage. Regular is just 2, but she is 5, so she's pretty easy to get her dominance going, especially when you first start out this game. Aparian Phantom has Veil, can't be poisoned, can't be locked. Zeal can use its order ability right away, which damages an enemy unit by 3. But like that Carrot Guard in the Northern Realms deck we played, at the end of its turn, if an order is not used, boost self by 1. So it's going to kind of keep boosting itself until you need to do that damage. So it's really helpful for dominance. Derege Locks, you've seen him. Alzur's Thunder, you've seen. Damage an enemy unit or damage a unit. Doesn't have to be an enemy. You almost always want it to be by an enemy, but you're damaging a unit by 5. So pretty great. Red Riders, you get to choose between spawning Frost on 1 row for 4 turns or each of the enemy's rows for 2 turns on each row. So it's a pretty good card, really helpful for getting that Frost. Wild Hunt Bruiser, deploy, move an enemy unit to the other row from melee to ranged, ranged to melee, and then if it moves to a row with Frost, you're going to also damage it by 2 points. So he's pretty helpful. Taskmaster purifies a unit. This gets rid of status effects, and if you don't have dominance, you can only do it to enemies, and you can do that to get rid of vitality, which gives it those points over time. You can also get rid of Veil, so if you want to try to purify the Veil off something and then lock it, you can do that. And if you have dominance, you can also purify your own units. So if they get locked, you can also purify them that way. It will also matter for defenders, which you probably won't see for a while, but a defender is basically a card that says you have to attack that card on that row. It is a status effect, so you can purify the defender status to get around those taunting cards. Wild Hunt Riders, these are like Dunbanner. They summon themselves out of the deck if you have dominance on deploy. One other thing I'm going to note here about deploy, deploy happens first, then the card gets resolved in accordance with all other cards on the board. So like the leader effect, how you're getting that boost by 1 if there's frost on the opposing row for Wild Hunt cards. Well, that happens after the deploy. So you have to have this card is only equal to 4 even if there's frost on the opposing row for this deploy ability to count. So if you're playing it, the opponent has a 5-point card and this is your only one. Well, typically 5 ties for dominance, so you get the dominance and would summon the card, but the deploy happens before that boost comes. This is something that people forget a lot, including me, after playing for years in this game. Deploy first, then other cards, including leader abilities, are resolved. Naglfar Crew, deploy, spawn frost for 2 turns on an enemy row. At the end of your turn, if there is a frost on the opposite row, boost self by 1. So he's also Wild Hunt. He can get boosted by that frost if it's already there when he comes out. But otherwise, he spawns the frost first. So if it's on the opposing row, the deploy happens first. Then the leader gets resolved, so he's able to get that boost himself. And then he's also going to boost himself at the end of turn for the frost. So it's actually a great way to get this card up to 3 points really quickly, and you can keep building that value over time. Wild Hunt Navigator, deploy, damage an enemy unit by 1, dominance by 3 instead. We're going to skip over the Hound. Navigator does the same thing except with boosts. Hound, at the end of your turn, boosts self by 1. And we're going to note here that this gives a nice reference to Shakespeare's Caesar, cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Shakespeare is also claimed to have said that, but, the person who wrote that he said that never actually talked to him directly, so no first-hand accounts of that. All right, let's jump in and play a game. I am playing the starter decks it gives you. We will, at the end of this week, cover how to create new decks. You'll be able to try those out and use them at any time that you want to. But note that we are still very much in the beginner stage of this game, and we'll get to that when we get to it. Alrighty, up against Northern Realms. Alright, we've already played them, so that's really helpful for us as a control deck. You want to know what the other person is thinking, and you want to be able to react to it. So it's helpful that we've already played it. And we did get something that we call bricks. Remember how I told you with these summon cards, you want to make sure they're in your deck, otherwise you're going to miss their value. Well, we are first, so we can get these out pretty easy. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that back. That way I can grab it out of my deck by having dominance. So this is pretty good. Nithral this round is really helpful to have. Alzur's Thunder is going to be helpful control. I don't really need Taskmaster, so I'm going to put it away. And I don't really need Surrender here, but it is a gold, so I'm going to just keep it for a later round. I think probably Red Riders is the thing I need least here, but we're going to keep it just in case we get Naglfar's Crew. And we do. And one nice thing about drawing into your bricks is that when you put it back, you're not going to draw into it again. So it goes back into your deck at the bottom, you keep drawing from the top, and then they all get shuffled back in together at the end of that. So that's why I was able to use all 3 of my mulligans, because I was confident knowing that I wasn't going to regain that card. All right, right now we're just going to start off here with Nithral. Because we're first, we have this tactical advantage we can use whenever we want. Unless the opponent has made tweaks to their deck, Northern Realms doesn't have great answers to these to cards like this. They don't have great removal, meaning that they can't use they don't have Alzur's Thunder in the starting deck. They could have added it. It's possible, but probably not. So since they don't have that, he can't just damage this card. And right here, I want to go ahead and try to delete this done banner so that the opponent can't boost it and get it out next turn. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and hit it with this. And then we're going to play Nagelfar's Crew. And we're going to, on deploy, it's going to put this Frost down. And remember, we get that passive boost from the leader ability that happens after the deploy. And then at the start of the next turn, the opponent's unit is going to get damaged by 2. It only has 1 health, so it's going to die off here. And Nagelfar's Crew gets boosted because there was Frost on that row. And we're probably going to try to get as much Frost as we can onto this melee row to force the opponent to play stuff to ranged so that we can hit it all with Surrender. Might not do that this round, but we're going to do it in one of them. Smart thing here for the opponent is to play to range, which they choose to do. But we are going to use Wild Hunt Bruiser to force this unit down a row. He's trying to play this Carrick City Guard to get this passive boost, but Nithral has to be played to melee. So we need to kill this Carrick City Guard before it comes back to us, because that Carrick City Guard will end up killing our Nithral. So there's a couple ways for us to do that. One, we could just move it down to the other row using a leader ability. I think the easiest way here is to just go ahead and push it down. And technically it would die off anyway with the Frost, but Nithral has a 1-turn cooldown, so we're just going to go ahead and use him. And Nagelfar's Crew continues to get boosted. Now I'm not using this tactical advantage because I'm trying to get away from playing getting a card over 9 points, because every starter deck starts with Geralt of Rivia. Here I want to try to get rid of this armor eventually. I think the easiest way to do that is just to go ahead and play our Red Riders. And we're going to do this Frost on enemy row for 4 turns. And then we're going to go ahead and take this boost onto our Bruiser, so we get the dominance. And we're going to go ahead and smack that. And then it'll take that damage at the end of this turn. And it has reset its value back down to 1 because we were able to eliminate all of that armor. Now we're up by quite a few points. I'm actually very happy with this. Got the opponent to play their Geralt of Rivia before they really needed to. What we're going to do here is just go ahead and play this Wild Hunt Hound. And we're going to go ahead and hit the Geralt of Rivia because this Redanian Elite is going to go ahead and die off all on its own here. I think we're up by enough points that we could probably just pass. But we're going to try to force the opponent to play a little bit more than they want to. Remember, 4 is the threshold, right? So if you go down to 4 and you win, you can still get 10 cards back by the final round. As soon as you cross that threshold, you start running into problems. So what we're going to actually do here is force the opponent to play 1 more card. And they have to play this to melee to get that 4 points. And they do play another card. It's not quite enough value for them. We're going up by 2, and the opponent's going down by 2 every turn. And we have dominance because of the tie. I think we're going to see if we can force the opponent to make a misplay here. So we're going to go ahead and take this pass. We're up by 6, and we're going to go up by a few more points here. We go up by 2, the opponent goes down by 2, so they now have to make a 10-point play. But it's going to have to come back to them again, which means they're going to lose 2 points, and we're going to gain 2 points. So we're going to go to 20. They're going to go to 6. They have to make a 14-point play in order to win this by only going down to 4 cards. Looks like they make that choice, and she is not a 16-point play. She is a 9-point play. And this is one of those problems in Gwent where you really need to do the math. And the opponent here is crossing that threshold of 4. Technically, they could get this by playing the leader ability. Alright, I think this might actually get them there. There they go. They actually did get there. Very nice. But they had to use their leader ability, which very simplistically for you guys who are just starting out, leader abilities are considered basically an extra card. So they had to play 2 cards in that one turn essentially in order to get back ahead. So I don't want to brick in this Wild Hunt Rider, but I also might not want to play him here. So I'm just looking for some other bronze cards. Taskmaster works fine. But I don't really care that much about that Purify. I think I like the Wild Hunt as just a passive point engine a little bit more. And I don't want to break here, so I'm just going to pass this on to the opponent, see what they choose to do. As Northern Realms, you like long rounds, and they're at 7 cards, so honestly a smart thing for them to do at this point is probably to just pass. We had to play Nithral a little bit prematurely. So that's kind of a win. Alright, Radovid's Royal Guard set up a little bit of value that I don't want them to have, so we're going to do this really simply here and just use Autostriga to go ahead and remove them. It's going to give us a clear point gap against the opponent. And we can use a Parian Phantom as our engine for round number 3. If anything, I probably want to play out this other Wild Hunt Rider just so I have a better chance at getting these 2 gold cards. This is kind of a poor play. So let's go ahead and get out our Wild Hunt Riders. We're just saving this Thunder. We might need to use that. There's nothing to lock here. All of these cards are done. All of their abilities are on deploy. So this is really kind of a poor choice here. The thing he would have wanted to lock is probably this Wild Hunt Hound. But I think maybe what the opponent was going for was to try to take dominance back from us. So we're going to use 1 leader charge here. I probably don't necessarily need it, but we're going to just go ahead and see if we can get some dominance in the long round here. We'll play this Wild Hunt Hound to that row. Gets boosted to 4, and then Derogay is going to go down to 4 points. So we'll have dominance again for this next turn. Alright, Drummer is a great card. We're just going to kind of let him go. No reason to deal with him right now. We're tied for dominance. We're going to take this back by boosting up Striga and playing to that Wild Hunt card to the row that is where the opposing row has Frost. Oh, we can go ahead and use Alzur's Thunder to remove this Drummer next turn if we're really concerned about it. Opponent takes the damage straight away. Doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but everybody gets to make choices. Alright, the opponent passes. They are down a card. We still have a leader charge. I'm actually not super convinced that Geralt is going to find his value in this match. But he is a bit of an insurance policy. I have last say, so I kind of just want to let the opponent get 1 really big unit and not have to worry about that too much. So we're going to get rid of this guy. He's pretty good. We really don't need these Purifies. The lock is much better here. We got all of our golds. So, and you saw we got it on our last draw. It could have been another one of those riders. So that's why you want to get these guys out early, just so you don't have to worry about drawing into them. Alright, so cards that kind of do stuff for us over time. We're just going to start this Aperian Phantom. I could have put Frost there, but there's no way to move, so you know, it would have been 1 extra point. It's not a big deal. That's just hitting armor, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me, so I'm not quite sure what the opponent was going for there. I think here we're just going to play Old Spear Tip. He's not Wild Hunt, and I'm wanting to make sure I get the value off of this White Frost. So I'm not in any rush to hurry up and throw down that White Frost quite yet. I do want to make sure the opponent takes 2 turns before I use it, just so it gets the maximum value. No boosted units in that row, so it does nothing whatsoever. And we'll go ahead and just move this guy up, because this lock is just a little too valuable for us to use quite yet, and Geralt gets absolutely no value. And then we're going to place the Bruiser on that row, and we'll move the Temerian infantry up because it'll do that 2 damage to him. And that works really well for our purposes. Here's that drummer. We anticipated something that would give us a good lock, so we're going to go ahead and lock that drummer. Prevents him from boosting that unit at the end of his turn every turn. And he went ahead and took that 2 damage from that frost. Remember, Geralt is just kind of our insurance policy here. But it looks like we're not going to need him, so we're just going to go ahead and play him down. It's a little unfortunate. Actually, let's go ahead and do this. Let's use this surrender. Kill all of those units. We'll end our turn. Now, you want to use this Aperian Phantom ability. He gets 1 point every turn, but if I use his ability, it does 3 damage. So we're going to go ahead and just use that here. Doesn't matter who it's on. That's the way to get the maximum value. It's worth 2 more points to use that instead of just passing and letting him only gain 1 point. So that's the game. That's a wrap. That's Monsters for you. Let me know what you guys think in the description down below. And if you're excited for Nilfgaard, hang around, keep watching this playlist, and you'll see Nilfgaard up next. Alright, talk to you guys soon. Until next time, good luck on the path. Get out there, keep on Gwenting. Bye for now.